Welcome, Suzanne. Tell me your involvement with the Bristol Festival of Ideas. What do you think it means to a diverse city like Bristol?
Hello, really happy to talk about this. Most people know me as Chief Executive of a concert hall, St George's Bristol, but I'm really proud that I've been a member of the board and now I chair Bristol Festival of Ideas. And I think everyone is endlessly curious, aren't they? And everyone has an opinion on global matters, local matters. And that's what the Festival Ideas brings to the fore. So it brings world ideas, ideas from around the world into Bristol, but it also looks at the ideas of people who live in Bristol. So it's about the creativity and the ideas that already exist right across that city. And as you say, it's a very diverse one. So what the festival is very good at is it brings to the fore things like it's looked at issues like the Bristol bus boycott, for instance, in the 1960s. So it brings in speakers to examine that, to offer insights into what happened, what it means now. And indeed, it kind of revisits some of these themes as well. It works in partnership with lots of organisations around different communities in the city. So it's worked in partnership, for instance, with the Cargo Project, which is about empowering and inspiring young Black people. It's about looking at Bristol and the UK's involvement in the transatlantic slave trade, for instance. And yes, not being afraid to talk about the difficult subjects, but also to help move on as well and to make sure that the right people are speaking and being listened to. So it's great for that. It's brought in an incredible array of names over the past 25, 30 years. Too many to list off, but have been all the biggest names from science, literature, politics. We've had Gordon Brown, we've had Bernie Sanders coming in to speak a few years ago. We've had Harry Belafonte, writers like Margaret Atwood, hundreds of names. So it's an incredibly rich festival, a rich offering, but it really is about giving lots of people the chance to speak, not just the usual suspects.
And how do you think it's influencing the city, or has been influencing the city? Because you said it's been going on for 25, 30 years, actually. Do you think it's actually shaping the way the city is evolving year on year?
I think we'd all like to think that it is, yes, because it's the people who participate in it are people, for instance, like our mayor. So there's the annual mayor's statement, and he gets to put forward his ideas about what he's trying to achieve in the city, what the challenges are. And it's a chance then for people to respond to that. But it's also about, for instance, the Festival Ideas has commissioned a city poet. So we've had over the past year and a half, we've had Vanessa Kisule, who's, talking about all the people and the places that we should cherish in the city, but also again confronting some of the big problem areas and the challenges. So I think it changes things. I mean, it's had retrospectives. It's been involved in Homes for Heroes, which has been the big project looking back over 100 years of council housing and council estates, and looking at what the importance of that was at the time. And then coming forward and talking about what architecture should and can be today, for instance, and what the places we live in need to be like. So I think it does change things. I think that people who come into contact with its events go away again having new ideas to consider. And I think those people are living in the city. So they're the people who are doing the jobs, teaching our young people. So I think, yes, it definitely does have an impact.
Amazing, thank you. Can you share some thoughts with us on the future of arts in a city like Bristol?
Well, obviously, it's a really painful period for everyone to be going through right now. And the arts have been badly hit. And particularly in terms of its venues, they've been the first to close down during this pandemic, and they'll probably be amongst the last places to open up again fully. So, yes, I think we are losing a lot at the moment, but I think the arts are resilient, and I think that we'll come back again, we'll spring back. I think things will look very different, but we believe passionately, artists, whether they're musicians, actors, painters, anyone, they really believe passionately in what they do. And it's a vocation, it's not a job for them. So I think that things will recover, but it's been hard, and some people have been hit harder than others. And that's where this subject of inequalities comes up. We haven't all been hit equally. Artists, they struggle to earn a living at the best of times. So we've all heard and we know that many of the freelance artists in the city, and there are many of them because it's a city that thrives and is full of artists, but they work on a freelance basis and they've fallen between the cracks. They're not getting the help they need. And that's going to have an impact. And it's very hard really to take a register of absence and what is going to be lost. We may not see it immediately, but we will lose important opportunities, important moments, and I think we will lose talents. But there's a real commitment amongst all the people who I know working in the arts and culture to really fight back and to do what we can to get to the other side of this pandemic, but to make sure that we support those who need help to get them to the other side of it as too. So yes, in answer to your question, it's things are difficult right now, but it's a city I think that will recover because it values what happens in the arts and culture.
I think it really does. And I think people who live in Bristol particularly value the offering, the arts offering in terms of what happens in Bristol. And it's been really noticeable having that missing. And I think, we as consumers of art actually miss that a lot at the moment. And and it's going to be great when everything opens back up. But how do you think the spaces can adapt in the future to actually, let's say, within a pandemic still, be able to open and invite people back in?
Well, I think that job of adapting, adjusting is well underway. And I can speak for myself as someone who runs a concert hall, but who's in close contact with people running many of the other spaces in the city, from galleries to cinemas to theatres. They right from day one, really, they have started to look at what they can do to make sure that people can still come through the doors. I think it's important to say as well, the arts building, they're incredibly important spaces. I think over the years, as places have started to close down, we've seen the closure of places like libraries. They have become, the arts buildings have become real kind of beacons, really, amongst the city landscape. And they draw people in. They're places where people can go to in the daytime as well as the evening. And you don't always, yes, you have to pay to buy a ticket for most of the events, but in the daytime, you can wander through, and these are the great civic spaces. You can go in, you might be able to have a cup of coffee, you can wander around free exhibitions, you can see the archives of work that are being created by all these different arts organisations, and you can just sit and be, or you can meet up with friends. So I think they have a really often kind of unseen value in terms of the role they play in people's lives. Many of us inhabit these extraordinary buildings, and we're very lucky to do that. So, many theatres and concert halls, they inhabit the oldest buildings in the city. And we are, of course, as you say, having to adapt them. And I think it's called mitigating the risk, isn't it? So we have to put in all kinds of perspex screens. We have to reduce down the number of people who can come in at any one time. We have to, when people come in, we have to ask them to come in through one door, leave through another. So we're doing some things which are temporary, some things which are probably going to become semi-permanent, perhaps permanent. We've got all kinds of new rules for what we have to adhere to, and we know that many people are still, we have to wear masks during performances, which is not great, but we'll do that. Better to have the performance than not.
As CEO of St George's Bristol, how do you feel about being nominated for an RIBA Regional Award?
Oh, you could probably see in my face. I'm so proud, really proud. I'm reassured too that other people can see in the building, the new building, what I see in it. And for me, it's the most extraordinary space. It's elegant, it's beautiful. I think the architects, Patel Taylor, they really had their work cut out, because they had to design a new building to sit next to one that's a very well established and a very assertive building. The former church of St George's, it's very, very imposing. So how do you build something alongside that? But that, they've done it, and they've woven together the old and the new. And in many ways, I think what we have is, I would call it a kind of, it's almost a quiet space, but it has a inner beauty, if you like, without being too cheesy. But it has this inner beauty now that shines through. We have new spaces that have exceeded our expectations. So we have this beautiful room upstairs called the Glass Studio, and it has a high raised ceiling with an oculus, a skylight at the top that lets the light through. And it just has this wonderful acoustic. So we can hold all kinds of events in it that we didn't ever expect to be able to hold. And you can just stand in it and you just feel good, and the sound is great. And you can have these lovely intimate performances or spoken word events or meetings in their gatherings of people. And it's kind of revealed aspects of the old building as well, which is very unexpected. So we have a building, the church that was built nearly 200 years ago. And now downstairs in the cafe area, there's this beautiful wall that's been revealed, which is the original, it's the wall of the church, but it's been underground. It's been under part of a terrace of gardens for nearly 200 years. But now it's revealed, and it's just this beautiful honey-coloured stone. And you just stand there and you can just feel the kind of the nod to the past. And then you look in the other direction and you see this wonderful, confident new building that's looking to the future. So I'm delighted it's been recognised by RIBA, and let's hope it wins. I have to say that.
I mean, it's an incredible, I mean, St George's as a building was an incredible building, and it has a lot of emotion and atmosphere, and to just link that with a new building that gives you the same feeling is absolutely incredible. I think, like you said, the two work so well together. And for me, I've been to the building and it just evokes so much emotion and feeling, both old and new, which is absolutely incredible to be able to capture in a building.
No, oh, well, thank you for saying that. And that's what I mean about, I just feel it kind of thrills me slightly when people say that, because I think, I'm so biased. Of course, I'm going to say that.
And then we're going to ask about a different building in Bristol, actually. So just renamed. So what do you think of the Bristol Beacon project? And do you like the new name?
Well, first of all, I have to say that I work really closely with the people at Bristol Music Trust, and I think they're doing an amazing job, and I'm absolutely right behind them. And I cannot wait for the new hall and the new spaces to be revealed. It's going to be brilliant for Bristol.
Thank you very much for joining us today. I'm really, really looking forward for everything to reopen, and especially coming back to St George. And I hope you are as well.
I definitely am. I've never left, you might say. I'm still there. So yeah, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to stay there. And we had our first live concert inside the hall last night, and it was amazing. Yeah. And you realise what, the live experience is absolutely so essential to any kind of art form and to artists. And the artist afterwards, he's one of the finest pianists in the whole of the world. And I asked him how he'd found it, and he just said, I loved it, I loved it, I loved it. He was so fired up. He was so excited because everything has had to be about streaming events, and it's not the same. Artists don't get that same adrenaline rush. They don't get the nerves. The nerves are actually important for creating these kind of on the edge great moments. And suddenly we were there open again, and you thought, oh, that is what we have been missing. That's what's been missing from our lives. So bring back the live music, the live theatre, the visits to the museums, the art galleries, bring back the artists. That's what our country, that's what our culture is about.
Oh, I totally agree. Thank you very much, Suzanne.